Hello and welcome to Reading Matter. This is your podcast about fiction and nonfiction books. My name is Nat and I'll be talking today about a series of novels that I love so much. I will never get tired of promoting these, and people who worked with me in the publishing company, in the digital publishing company that I worked at before, and people who deal with me on a daily basis suffer from a lot of imposition of this novel on them. And I actually will never stop doing that. Maybe 10 years ahead, when Ben Aaronovitch hasn't stopped writing yet and his talent kind of got into his spin and he just keeps repeating the same thing again and again, maybe then I would. But for now, I definitely am a fan of Rivers of London, or more known as the Peter Grant series. So the whole series started coming out in 2011 and the latest book came out in 2020. So this is about 7 novels and 3 novellas so far, including different additional installments as graphic novels and other stories. So basically you can of course just follow the main story's plot in order to stay tuned, but all those additional spin-offs and interesting additional cases, I feel like they just add spice to that story. Rivers of London is a procedural, if you think of it this way. It's a crime fiction genre, which is at the same time is an urban fantasy. So Rivers of London and the other books of the series are definitely an urban fantasy novels that are very tightly intertwined with police investigations. So our protagonist is Peter Grant. He's your average, I guess, London Metropolitan Police constable, a copper, as he calls himself, who, in one of those rainy, foggy London days, ends up in a crime scene where he questions or gets a statement from a witness who turns out to be a ghost. This is quite an interesting premise, if you ask me. But I love how Ben Aaronovitch manages to just spin the whole character and his experience with magic in London into a 9-volume storyline, basically. So we do get a lot of character growth, a lot of character change, a lot of interesting twists and turns and plots, and not just with the protagonist, Peter Grant. Also, fun fact, I don't normally like main characters, but in the case of Rivers of London, I just love Peter. He is such a perfect main character. He is smart, he's interested in the science of magic, he has his own logical approach, he is a very contemporary person. I loved the conversation they had with his new boss, Nightingale, who is a magician and is also teaching Peter magic. And according to the classical tradition of the magic in this world that originated back in the old England, they call their teachers master, of course, to what Peter was like, yeah, no, I don't think there is no way I'm doing this. And another fun conversation took place that actually resonates with the political correctness debate. And just the fact of political correctness speech nowadays is when they were discussing what would be a better way to call a black magician or a magician who uses magic to hurt other people or for their own private success. And in this case, I think they decided to call it like ethically changed magicians, maybe as a joke, but I think it's a funny joke. Anyways, yeah. So I think what's important to mention about Peter, what also makes him such an interesting character, is that his dad is a white jazzman from London and his mom is a black woman from Sierra Leone. So this kind of very different in cultural terms couple, also in the terms of temper, got together, and Peter is a result of this marriage. So he has a very interesting intake on culture, on skin color, on stereotypes and family relations, because he just keeps referencing a lot of his family relations on his mother's side and how that's a very different and interesting perspective, let's be honest. Also, it's interesting to see him being a copper, a police officer, basically, while people expect him just to, go into those parts of London where people with darker skin kind of do better than any other copper for whatever reason they think that should work. But instead, he gets to be the first in a very long time magical apprentice for Metropolitan Police. That's fascinating. But this is just basically the premise of the first book. A lot of amazing elements are intertwined into the whole storyline. As the novels progress into the series, we get to see a lot of other characters. We get to see Mama Thames, Papa Thames, so the rivers, the sort of spirits of rivers who are gods and goddesses in a way because of the powers they have over humans. And my favorite part personally comes in when Peter kind of expands his collaboration to other members of Metropolitan Police who just have to accept the fact that there is magic in London. And he even has a colleague in the United States, and one of the novels, or more like novella, The Oktoberman, deals with the German Abteilung for magical police stuff. So I just love how actually the whole world that Ben Aaronovitch builds around Metropolitan Police and London magic expands to being everywhere pretty much. We have an ex-Soviet witch, and we have people, especially women, who practiced magic even back in the days when everybody just thought, oh, this is just for boys. I find this fascinating how the whole thing just expands into showing how what English magicians believed to be their private exercise for gentlemen only actually was practiced by many, many other people in good or bad way, depending. But how finally they open up in the face of, well, Nightingale and Peter, two of them, they open up to a bigger world of magic, a bigger world of regulations or lack of regulations in magical community. And also characters interact with a lot of supernatural beings. So a lot of folklore comes in. And speaking of folklore, I think if you ask me now, after 2020, after the, I believe, 10th book came out, my favorite is still Foxglove of Summer. It's a novella when Peter actually gets out of London. As much as I love my London books, I did enjoy Peter and Beverly, his friend, getting out of town and experiencing some rural policing. I think that was a really nice episode, I wanted to say. It's not an episode. A very nice book. And it deals with fairies. I think the English traditional folklore fairies are scary, but also very interesting and always a charming read. They charm you. A separate thank you, I would like to say not just to Ben Aaronovitch, but also to a voice actor, to the narrator, Cobner Holbrook-Smith. He narrated all of the books in the series, except The Oktoberman. The Oktoberman was actually narrated by a narrator who also, I believe, speaks German, because every once in a while he had to pronounce some German words and names, and I think he did a good job. So Cobner Holbrook-Smith is just such a perfect Peter Grant. He did not only make him sound perfect and balanced, but also other characters, like his female characters, do not sound irritating at all, although being voiced by a male narrator. His like different age of characters and different social status also is so nicely portrayed that I can only recommend everybody, if you want to pick up this series, go straight for the audiobooks. As good as print and reading printed book is, it's so enjoyable, but I believe the whole story just benefits from Cobner Holbrook-Smith narrating it. I actually feel like he would be such a perfect character, such a perfect actor to play Peter Grant in the series adaptation, if there ever will be one. I have heard that the rights have been bought by the producing company of Simon Pegg, which I think is a really, really good sign, because for now everything he did was a great quality work. So I really hope that the screen adaptation, that he actually does it. And I'm so looking forward to see the cast and just the music and everything. London, more magical London for everybody. Yeah, as you might have guessed, I do love magical London. And books about London and England and magic in general. Books about London and England makes sense. I wanted to say, of course, magic in England and magic in London in general. Right. So If you have read the series, make sure to share your thoughts on it on social media. Link is in the description as always. Put your likes, put your comments, and I'll see you next time. Thanks and bye. Hello and welcome.